In the short span of time that I've been doing these fan edits, I've had a number of individuals email me, some to pitch ideas for episodes, and others looking to learn more about the process in which the writing is accomplished. Well, fear not, you valiant few, for in this edition of Outside the Frame, we're going to step back and examine just how I write a fan edit, some of the pros and cons of working with existing material, coming up with a narrative, the mediums used to convey a narrative, and stretching out those narratives among several episodes. So join me now as we embark on this adventure beyond the adventure. As most who have been with us for a while already know, these fan edits are partially constructed using existing footage from the lovable Tracy Jordan and her take on the character Batgirl, or as she's sometimes referred to, Bat Tracy. Now when it comes to handling existing material and trying to construct narratives around that material, it can either be a welcome experience or a daunting task. Hell, it might even be both. What's welcoming about building upon existing material is that you already have a general sense of perspective, and through this perspective, a general sense of the directions you can take based on what you have on hand. Imagine opening your refrigerator and finding a select number of ingredients available to use towards a dinner recipe. Given what you have in the refrigerator, your options, while limited, allow you to narrow your focus and arrive at a decision much more efficiently than if you were to walk through the supermarket with an empty shopping cart. Much like the select number of ingredients in a pantry or refrigerator, working with existing content means you get an idea of which directions you can take and which you cannot. The beauty of existing content is that you're allowed to narrow your focus and arrive at a decision more efficiently in your writing. But there's a flip side to this as well. Working with existing content means less flexibility. When you're forced to limit your creativity, it leaves a lot of ideas on the cutting room floor, unavailable because the content either doesn't exist or, well, yeah, that's basically it. It doesn't exist. And as much as I can write things into existence that occur off-screen or are simply dialogued, it feels cheap, and I try to limit the amount of times I do it. Now, as far as coming up with a narrative, it's important to once again go back to the existing content, examine it, and try and find how you can incorporate new meaning to the actions occurring on screen. Initially, some of the content does in itself have plot and motive baked in, but as is often the case with content of this nature, motive and plot tend to be of lighter nuance and often abandoned in favor of the visually appealing elements of which the content was essentially created for. This bare-bones style of content allows for greater narrative flexibility. For example, a confrontation between two characters can stand alone as a scene unto itself, much like a grilled chicken breast alone on a plate still qualifies as a meal, as basic as it is. And trust me, I've had plates like that. But when you start looking for a reason for that confrontation, a host of possibilities become plausible. Just check out this scene.
The gig is up, Minerva. I'm on to you.
Batgirl, what are you doing here?
I'm here to put an end to your operations.
I don't know.
It's time to close up shop.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't like your tone.
The dialogue is generic and vague. It could apply to just about any motive or plot line you can conjure. And once I have a motive for that confrontation, I go back to the top, working my way down a chain of events leading up to the confrontation, piecing together corresponding material that helps illuminate the motive and advance the plot. This is what I like to call a general overview. A general overview is just what it sounds like, general. No dialogue is built here. No finely tuned specifics are incorporated. The purpose of constructing a general overview is so that I can get from point A to B to C as efficiently as possible. Later, as I go about constructing scenes, I can revisit the overview for direction on what specifics in dialogue I need to focus on, and the mediums I need to incorporate given the situation. Now, considering the fact that much of the original content's content is more about being a visually appealing spectacle rather than a heavy-laden plot trove, it falls to me to incorporate these mediums to convey motive, character, and plot. This is where the Bat Computer interface, instant messages, emails, and text messaging become vehicles for fleshing out plot points, character motivations, and revelations relative to the story I'm trying to tell. And while these mediums are not as visually appealing and require the audience to do some heavy lifting, they get the point across, while also helping preserve the delicate balance between using existing content and incorporating original concepts. Of course, this is just my humble opinion on the matter. For all I know, I could be in the wrong here legally, but that's a conversation for a different video. The next part of the process I like to call marinating the meat. Now I know the cooking references might be getting a little stale, but I was taught that when writing, metaphors and analogies should stay under the same umbrella of thought. So bear with me on this, and let me make this make sense. When you're preparing a protein like chicken or beef, some recipes call for marinating the meat. This is the process of mixing a variety of herbs, spices, and liquids, and allowing the protein a chance to absorb all the flavor before throwing it in the pan to cook. In most cases, the longer you allow protein to marinate, the more it will soak up those flavors, in turn allowing for a much more memorable bite at the end of the cooking process. Much like marinating a protein over several hours to produce a memorable bite, allowing a plotline to spread over the course of several episodes builds anticipation and expectation towards a big reveal or final showdown. A great example of this comes from Catwoman's story arc, from Floodgate through Woman Scorned. Through 3 episodes, she's essentially a steady subplot to a bigger narrative, teased sparingly before finally having a grand standoff with a fellow villain, Nicholas Green. But how exactly do you stretch something out that long? Well, if you streamline her plot where it's the only thing carrying the episode, you're going to arrive at the climax quicker. It's only natural. To slow the process and stretch it out, you've got to incorporate subplots. Now, throughout the episodes, Floodgate 1 and 2, The Martinez Files, and Woman Scorned, there are several other lines being weaved into the narrative that shift the viewer's focus, if ever so slightly. Firstly, you have Floodgate, in which inmates are pouring out of the asylum to drastic results. Simultaneously, Batgirl and Robin are sidelined through a series of their own unfortunate events. These plotlines take up a bulk of the narrative, but we introduce Selina Kyle as a woman scorned and out for vengeance, with her motives for vengeance still unclear. In the episode to follow, Batgirl is tied up in an investigation into the orchestration of Floodgate, Renegade's involvement, and rescuing Robin. These plot lines take up a bulk of the episode, but alongside them, we learn that Catwoman murders Warden Martinez, thus adding a little more to her story arc. So, to reiterate, stretching out a plot line, at least for me, involves the implementation of other plot lines to simultaneously run alongside it. This not only slows down the process of unraveling the line, but it also opens up other avenues for subsequent episodes to take once that line has reached its end. In fact, if you stop and think about it, Floodgate's plot was essentially a big reset, with so many villains making their escapes from Arkham. Batgirl's gallery of rogues become options again. Options for more adventures. Listen, these fan edits have been a blast to make. I've particularly enjoyed stretching my creativity insofar as developing narratives for this otherwise plot-deprived, desolate iteration of a beloved comic book heroine. It's a blast developing mediums from which to convey the narrative and breathe new life onto treaded material. Stretching out a plot to span several episodes while simultaneously juggling additional ones is a task unto itself, and excuse me if I sound like I'm patting myself on the back. If you've made it this far, thanks for sticking around. As I've said numerous times, just because I touch on a subject doesn't mean there won't be more to add at a later date, assuming we're still here. In the meantime, I hope you continue to enjoy the fan edits on this channel and these segments that illuminate the many processes needed to produce them. Until next time, goodbye.